All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into today's video. My name's Jeremy Haynes. I'm here to help you hit $1 million months. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. Everything that we talk about here is about hitting $1 million months. We do it with high ticket products, high ticket services. My entire channel's dedicated to that topic, to be clear. I'd encourage that you go and check out all my other videos. There's a lot of information. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Drop a like and a comment. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back. Excited to have you here. I'm gonna drop some value on you per usual. Today's topic: best practices for call funnels when scaling up to $1 million months, okay? Again, just in case you are oblivious to one of the most common facts of hitting the big $1 million months and scaling well beyond it, call funnels is a cornerstone to that. I have an entire video where I talk about an S-tier list, and in the S tier itself, top tier, one of the #1 things that's probable to help you hit $1 million months is call funnels. And it's because they're simple, direct, to the point, and a preference of how rich people buy it. Plays into what a financially well-off demographic prefers. And there are a tremendous amount of ways to stuff a fuckload of information in front of the person who's going through the call funnel to educate them, make them excessively aware, and get them to the point where they're well-framed prior and after the call itself. That way you turn your salespeople into cashiers. I think a lot of people use other strategies because they fail to accomplish what I just mentioned there in their call funnels. So they have to use things like webinars. They have to try to force people through like a 2-call close, and they just do a very poor job overall. So they have to rely on very inefficient versions of funnels. Call funnels are predictable, consistent. You can just scale them up in a very succinct way of increasing ad spend to book out the closers, getting more closers. It's just logical, just makes sense. If you're still out there right now not using call funnels, get your shit together and start using one. If you're already using call funnels, congratulations, you're smart. Let me show you how to beef it up and make a fuckload more money with it. Okay? So first of all, let's just get on the same page with what a call funnel should look like. A call funnel for me is typically very simple to start. I'm always going to defer to this exact look before I do literally any other style or add any additional stuff. #1, it's the headline. This is what the page looks like. It's the headline first. Simple, to the point, what the offer's about, who it's for, just a headline. This is going to be one of two things. And the first one is called the mini webinar, all right? The mini webinar is a templated presentation. I use nowadays the mini webinar 2.0 more than anything else. I give that out to my students in my inner circle group, my master internet marketing community, my clients, obviously. And the second one is a standard VSL, which flows generally very similar to a mini webinar or the mini webinar 2.0. However, it's just typically shot like this. A person sitting here talking at the camera, going through some information. Not everybody's capable of doing that. The mini webinar and the mini webinar 2.0 are a templated presentation in which you screen record and you talk over the screen recording of the slides. So you build a deck and you go through that deck. Typically comes out in either one of these scenarios. A best practice of the VSL, ideally it's as low, believe it or not, as about 2 minutes, all the way up to about 15 minutes. The more financially qualified the demographic you're selling to is, the shorter, more direct, and punctual this VSL or mini webinar should be. Okay, to be clear, when it comes to the application itself, we have talked about this in other videos. We use Typeform and Calendly. This combo specifically matters a lot for one thing and one thing only. They integrate together and they reduce having multiple steps in your funnel. Most of you who run call funnels in an ineffective way, you'll do something similar. You'll have a VSL and you'll typically have your application. Then, after they fill out the application, you are going to take them over to a scheduler page. And then from there, you're typically going to take them over to your confirmation page. Now this, in my opinion, is silly. I think this way of doing it makes no sense. Why? Because you typically see right here between this step in particular, between the application, the app being filled out, and the scheduler itself, you'll usually see about a 50% drop off, okay? In the quantity of people that apply later, not scheduling, because they're thinking to themselves, oh, I already applied, they're gonna call me anyway. But in reality, your sales team sucks ass and they won't call people. Or you're gonna have your setters call them and they're gonna fail to connect. Versus, you and I both know this is true. If you didn't have that happen and you just had 100% of people that applied schedule, guess what? they'd all be on the schedule, and you'd simplify your financial model, you'd increase your probability of people closing, and you wouldn't have to rely on that whole cleanup shit that you've built out just because you have a huge inefficiency based on how your shit's set up right now. In comparison, when I use Typeform and Calendly, and I don't have a bias, like I'm not getting paid telling you to do this, to be clear. This is just what's worked for us over the years. When I saw that 15% drop, I said there's gotta be a better way. And one day I was in Typeform and I saw they had a Calendly integration. I implemented that Calendly integration into Typeform. I got rid of all these people who weren't scheduling. It just became a step in the application itself to schedule, which is what makes sense, okay? Now, I commonly hear people, every time I bring this up, regardless of how efficient it is, let me just make sure you understand the results, okay? If you had a 50% drop between your application and scheduler, that means you're artificially inflating your cost per call twice as much as it should be, which is so dumb. Okay? So dumb. Makes no sense. It's an artificially inflated cost. Now, you have all kinds of justifications you're going to use if you're in that boat and you don't want to just switch. If you're one of the people who's already thinking to yourself, yeah, this makes sense. I would love to get my cost per call cut in half by using that combo, and I'd love to get twice as many calls scheduled as a result. Great. You're one of the smart people watching this video that doesn't have a bias towards information you're sold on. If you have something that tells you, oh, well, I need to use Go High Level Scheduler, or I need to use Schedule Once, or you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like there's always some fucking reason that somebody, typically in your organization, it's generally not you as the business owner, it's usually like your head of sales, or like some operations person you have that's like, oh, well, for reporting purposes, or like for what we need to do when we're scaling up, like it's much better for us to use Schedule Once or Go High Level, you know? It's like, no, shut that person up, use something that's gonna get your calls doubled and your cost per call reduced in half by just integrating the two. It makes no sense to do otherwise. So to be clear, when you have this flow in comparison, okay, here's how your stuff ends up looking, okay? You end up having, again, this page where you got the headline, you got the VSL or your mini webinar, and then here you've got your application, but the application also has the scheduler in it. That way, you have 2 pages as a result where somebody could go. You have your confirmation page, and you have what's called your DQ page, your disqualified people. Those unqualified folks, they should ideally go to a drop cell because they're not qualified. In addition, in terms of a best practice, when it comes to pixeling, okay? I only want to have the pixel optimized for the standard event of one of 2 things usually, schedule or complete registration, okay? And all I'm doing is I'm pixeling the confirmation page where the qualified people go, okay? Only the qualified folks see this confirmation page. So therefore, when my pixel picks up that a qualified person hit my confirmation page, it's gonna send that data back to the ads manager for that pixel to use to go find more people similar to the qualified person, okay? When I do not pixel the unqualified people's confirmation page, the unqualified people never touch my pixel, so I never get a bunch of turds that my ads are targeting as a result of unqualified people hitting the pixel that I'm sending back for it to go find more people like that. That's how the pixel works. As soon as data comes back to it, it goes and finds more people that are taking the actions already. It's a prediction machine, okay? When it finds people who are similar to the people that already converted, that's who it thinks you want most, because you're sending the data back to the pixel to signal to it that that's who is converting, and that's who you like as a customer or a lead or whatever it is. So it goes and finds more of those folks. Point being, never, ever, 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 ever send the disqualified people to that confirmation page. They should never go there. Only the qualified people go to that confirmation page for the qualified folks. Unqualified people go to some form of a drop cell to liquidate that ad spend. And by the way, you can send the unqualified people through to a setter. People lie in their qualification questions all the time. I've actually done polls amongst students of mine, agency owners, marketers, business owners, and just regular people who buy shit. And I've asked and I've seen consistent results every time I do this poll. Hey, if we asked you, do you have this amount of money, would you lie about it? Yes or no? A majority of people say they would lie about it. So to be fair, if they're lying about it, there's a good chance that you can pick up some more money by having some setters call the unqualified folks that go to the drop cell page, okay? Again, we just don't want to pixel that page. That's what I want to emphasize. We don't want to send the turds back to the pixel, okay? That's all. So when you have this as your page itself in the call funnel, it's a very simple process. You essentially have a a 2-step process for your funnel, okay? Let's talk about some ad stuff. So from an advertising perspective, when it comes to call funnels, there's a few things you could do that most people do not do. Number one, you obviously want to really consider who you're selling to. If you're selling to rich folks, I had 3 different videos. Number one, on how to sell to rich people, on how to advertise to rich people, and on how to make offers to rich people. If you want to check any one of those out and get put on some game on how to sell to rich folks in detail. Much more depth than what I'll cover here today. But to be clear, as an example, if I'm selling to rich folks or I'm advertising to rich folks and I got an offer for rich folks, then I'm gonna make sure that I follow best practices about advertising, selling to rich people. Okay? If I'm selling to more of the general public, or I have an offer that costs less, okay, or if I'm selling to people who want to quit like a 9-to-5 job, or I'm selling to folks, again, that just aren't rich, there's a completely different way to advertise to both of those people. Okay? I'm going to consider that to start. In terms of best practices, there's a lot of, randomness out there for what you can do nowadays. First of all, broad targeting, right? It does work. I don't want to sit here and talk shit on broad targeting. It's good. It's definitely a best practice, okay? And it's something you could do, but, okay, you need to have a seasoned pixel. That's the big part of this in order to really get this to work. Otherwise, you're just trusting Facebook blindly when you don't have data to help it find who you're going after, and you rely solely on the messaging in the ad creatives and in the funnel itself. So you need to have a seasoned pixel in order to really maximize broad targeting. Okay, so when I say that the messaging controls who the ads go after the most nowadays, that also matters a lot. Okay, so strong messaging in the ads and in your funnel, or some of you guys use lead forms, like anywhere that has written words or spoken words is going to be analyzed, and that is going to be used by the advertising algorithm to determine who out of everybody they could target is probable to convert on what you're talking about and what you're writing down for what you can do for folks. Okay, messaging matters a ton, commonly ignored. By the way, super pro tip, you can leverage environment and stuff. Environment and stuff, I want to be clear and giving a big shout out to Mr. Ty Lopez on this one. I'll never forget, it was 2017. Ty's, I'm not going to say how much money he was making, but he was making buku bucks, okay? And Ty still does make buku bucks, respectfully to Mr. Ty Lopez. To be clear, I saw Ty one time in the middle of filming an ad over at one of his Beverly Hills houses at the time. And he made a very, very specific point to the videographer that he was filming with in order to incorporate some different things that he had in his environment at the time. And, I watched him film the ad. He gets done filming the ad, and I asked him, I was like, why did you tell the video guy to make sure that that stuff was in the background? Just as like a flex? It was almost like a very unsophisticated person's view on an extremely intelligent person's actions, trying to figure out what the fuck you just did something for. Okay, that's how it felt at the time. And he explains this very simply to me. He says, okay, so what is in the ad itself? So like if I'm sitting here and I'm talking, okay? And this, in this case, is Ty. He had, in this backyard, he had a basketball hoop, and in addition to the basketball hoop, he had 2 little dogs, and the dogs were big German shepherds. And again, there were 2 of them, okay? They were all in the video as well. He also had some chicks. So Ty had maybe, I think, like 2 or 3 girls. Respectfully to Ty, it might have been more, okay? And in addition to that, Ty, while he was shooting the ad, was playing basketball, okay? And when he was over here playing basketball, he's got a great jumper, by the way. He was shooting, banking threes in the middle of filming an ad. Obviously, he was standing on a basketball court, just to further give you some perspective on the environment. Outside of that, there were some plants in the background over here because there was a big retainer wall that separated the road from this massive compound that he was in. He leveraged all components of what I just described in the video itself. It wasn't like petting the dog, or like even talking to the chicks. He was shooting basketball, okay? But he just did his ad regularly. So I asked him afterwards again, I said, why did you make sure that all that stuff was there? And he said, the algorithm, these little AI things that they've got set up are analyzing everything. They're analyzing what I say, they're analyzing how I look, they're analyzing the stuff, the things in the environment. And when I want to get in front of a specific demographic, if I in my environment and with the stuff I have the things and can be in the environments in which they have interests in, my CPMs are cheaper and I can reach people more effectively because I'm not just like doing talking head content with a white wall behind me. I'm talking about stuff that they're probable to be interested in and that they're probable to convert on. But in addition to that, I'm incorporating stuff that also shows I have synergy to their interests. So Keep in mind, these algorithms on all these social platforms, they're engineered to keep people on the platform. And to keep people on the platform, they have to constantly show people stuff that they're interested in. So if you incorporate stuff with your environment and the physical stuff, literally in your environment, that the people you're targeting are probable to look at and actually have interest in, you're gonna reach those people cheaper, and you're actually gonna get more of them to convert, and you're gonna aid the algorithm in finding people that are of essentially synergistic interests to what you're representing you have interests in your videos or your images. And I was like, holy shit, you know? That felt like a super mega pro tip. And whenever I've been able to implement it with my most sophisticated clients that understand it, I can sit here and say this to you, but again, some of you either just literally might not have the willingness to like go that far, you know, and truly incorporate whatever your demographic is most interested in. But dude, when you can, it's kind of as simple as this, okay? Another way to put it is you gotta play the character, okay? When you play the character, let me give you a perfect example. I'm sitting here telling you how to make $1 million months possible for yourself and how to go well beyond that, okay? I'm not sitting here talking to you in a fucking 1-bedroom apartment. Okay, I'm talking to you at the literal top of a building in downtown Miami that's one of the most iconic buildings. I'm talking to you from a penthouse, right? I didn't do anything with that tree behind me. I paid somebody to come and put the tree together, okay? I have 4 cars. I'm not saying this to be pretentious. I'm saying this to put in perspective for you. I'm playing the character. I am the character.
I am the danger.
Okay? Got a Rolls Royce, 2 Ferraris. My Range Rover isn't a regular one. It's the fucking souped up SVR one. Does the crackle pops and all that shit naturally. It's badass. I don't talk to you wearing like Casios or fucking G-Shocks. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't hate those watches, but I don't wear them because that's not my character. You see what I'm saying? I wear and I am the fucking version of which you'd think I'd be. Because again, this is exactly who you'd expect to be giving you this information. Do you understand that? Really think about this. When you run your ads, are you the character that your people think that you should be? Or is there a huge unalignment? And that could be why your cost per call is through the fucking roof every time you scale beyond people who already know you. You know? You gotta play the character. So again, when we look at Ty Lopez as a great example, dude, Ty was selling to a good like 18 to 25-year-old demographic. The most in that specific year. And it changes, give or take, what he's selling, okay? But he had that offer, the SMMA offer, how to become a social media marketing agency. Bro, Ty was the perfect character. He had like 5 supercars, an $85,000 a month Beverly Hills compound. Ty has like 6 homes internationally in some of the best countries on earth. And they're all beautiful, by the way. They're not like little rinky-dink fucking 1-bedroom apartments that he got on a developer deal. You know what I mean? Like these are like baller fucking spots this guy's got. Ty has a huge farm, and he doesn't just do it for fuck all. He does it for tax advantages, and he has a whole brand around it. I tell you this, not sit here and kiss Ty's ass. I tell you this to give you perspective. Like, if you're learning from somebody on how to just start and scale a social media marketing agency, like Ty is one of the greatest internet marketers that's existed. He was one of the first people to use Google AdWords. He was using Facebook advertising in like 08 when it was blogs. You know what I mean? Like this guy's one of the OGs in the space, and obviously he's got a dramatically high following. His social media engagement's typically through the roof, and Ty has one of the most watched YouTube ads in history. The Here in My Garage ad.
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini
okay?
here.
Again, he's playing the character because he is the fucking character, okay? So some of you guys, thankfully, and this is how it should be, like it is with me as an example, you are the character, okay? You just are the person. You don't really gotta try or do anything extra, you know? But you do have to make sure, like I could film this same video against a wall, you know? I'm not doing that. I'm doing that in a way where I can express to you, you can have certainty and confidence in the words coming out of my mouth as the character. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, again, I ask you, are you the character? Do people truly feel that you are aligned to what you're talking about? We had an agency owner a long time ago, he was pitching lawyers. He would wear regular clothes, okay? Just regular person clothes. And I gave him a tip one time. I was like, hey man, what do you think lawyers wear? And he's like, oh, they wear suits. And I was like, you ever tried doing pitches and like showing up to sales calls in a suit to see what the difference would be? You ever thought about making ads in a suit? Dude, he tried that. His response rate and sales volume went through the roof compared to what it was prior. We've had people pitch doctors that buy doctor's coats and just put them on during their sales calls and pitches and in their ads, okay? We've had people, again, pitching doctors or dentists that like just buy a fucking set of dental equipment or like literally go into into a dentist's office and pay the dentist off to like use the room for 15 minutes to shoot some ad videos. It adds the synergy. You see what I'm saying? You put yourself as the character in the environment the character is expected to be in. You get what I'm saying? It's like that's how you maximize results with a call funnel. These practices, okay, yeah, when you do broad targeting, it's great, but I want to be clear in this as well. We also want to do interest stack targeting. Interest stacks where you just add a bunch of shit in terms of what qualified demographic interest and behavior traits your demographic has. You combine that with proper messaging. What you say, what you talk about in the ads, in the videos, the images, the copy, the headlines, etc. You add that as well, best practice wise, to the lead form if you're using it, and or to your call funnel. And remember, like some of you guys, it's a very like naive thought to think that they don't scan your page, okay? They watch your VSL and they use that in detail to find who is probable to convert on your offer. That's how the prediction machine works. It takes all the shit you say inside of your ads and your funnels, and it combines all that data to say who's most probable to convert on this guy's offer or this girl's offer. That's all it does. And when you use that logic to your advantage, in addition to these pro tips, these are like fucking, I'm putting you guys on serious game when I talk about this shit right here, okay? This goes over most of your head. I'm not saying that disrespectfully either. Some of you sitting here, I know for a fact, you're like, what the fuck's this guy talking about? Some of you sitting here are like, this is mastery level shit. That's who I'm talking to, okay? I'm talking to you right now who understands exactly what these bottom 2 points are and how valuable they are. And that's what I want you to go out and try in order to maximize your cost per call, in order to get a fuckload more calls with the exact same dollars you're already spending. The environment and the stuff being incorporated into the video ads, into the VSLs, makes such a tremendous fucking difference. Playing the character, being the character, looking, sounding, being in the environments they expect you to be in. Unreal in terms of the result differences that you typically achieve, okay? Now, outside of this, these are just general best practices. I also want to make sure that you expand on, I talk about this regularly inside of my videos where I'm talking about advertising, and it's the hammer them strategies, okay? This is where you have the key stages of your advertising process. Like, let's take the direct response ads as an example, okay? If I have my direct response ad, and then that leads over to my funnel, okay? And then that leads over to the actual call happening with the person, the sales rep, and then ideally that leads to a close. This is a usual process for direct response advertising. The hammer them strategy, what it does is it adds in, okay, different steps in the process where people are targeted by content, okay? That's the key thing that the hammer them strategy incorporates. It takes contextual content and injects it in at different stages of the process, okay? When you do all of them at once, I call that strategy the tornado. When you do a specific one of them that you find most beneficial, that's where I call it the hammer them, okay? Now, to be clear, and this is important to understand, if I'm targeting people with content before direct response, it's typically to expand on my existing warm audiences that I can target. So in a very cost-effective way, I'm adding people into my warm audience for like 1/10 of a penny or a penny. That's all the front-end content's really used for, unless you're gonna create a sequence with it, using one of my strategies like the Venus flytrap as an example, which you don't need to do. The Venus flytrap is a very specific strategy that you leverage a sequence of content before showing somebody direct response, because they don't have any information about your offer and why it's gonna make sense for them. So they need to see a sequence of content and watch it before they actually see the direct response ad. You don't need to use that commonly. What you can do with content at the beginning is cost effectively build your warm retargeting audience. Okay? Then you show those people who watch the content just in the warm audience to make it more cost effective. CPMs, pro tip, CPMs go down when there's already previous page interaction from the pages you're advertising from to those people. So for a penny or 1/10 of a penny, I can add somebody into a warm audience. I'll do that every fucking day of the week, okay? Then I'm gonna hammer people with direct response. Now, in between the direct response and the funnel, right? Let's use the example, they saw direct response ads, but they didn't go to the funnel yet. That's an easy thing to retarget. I can have content that further supplements why they need to go and take the action on the funnel. I gotta sell them more, right? There's very specific content that can be used for that. In comparison, if they went to the funnel, they booked a call, but the call hasn't happened yet, again, I can increase the sophistication of the content I use and be very contextual to the fact that they just booked a call. What are the most common questions that happen on sales calls? What are the most common objections? What are the expectations about how to be successful with your offer? What are the questions that come from the original questions getting answered? You know, these categories, these 4 categories, a quadrant, the 4 quadrants of content, that helps the most right here specifically, in between the booking the call and the call itself. And again, if you have a highly sophisticated product, something that costs a lot or something that you think that people won't buy on one call, you're just not answering their questions and framing them enough and selling them enough and getting them in trust enough with your brand and business prior to the call itself. As ridiculous as that sounds, and how many of you, no matter how good your offer is or whatever you're currently doing, you're selling yourself that you have to have a 2-call close, or that it's like gonna take a few weeks for the person to buy. But that's because you're doing the things that get the person to buy too fucking slow, right? You're getting the trust built too slow. You're not giving them the answers they need. You're just delaying everything. And you're allowing the process of what it takes to consume that information to be far longer than what it should be. You can compress that by fucking slamming people with contextual content given where they're at in your process. You just gotta do a better job at making that content. That, by the way, just a complete separate note here. You wanna become a master at what type of content to shoot? First of all, watch all my other videos. I have entire videos where I go do podcasts and I'm literally telling you ahead of time before I go to the podcast, I'm gonna intentionally clip farm on this podcast. I'm gonna do it for this specific step of my propaganda process tonight. I'm gonna show you a clip and explain how and where it works inside of my advertising process. My channel's the shit if you're trying to make a lot more money, okay? Welcome in if you're new, subscribe, okay? To be clear, and just to further emphasize on this, the hammer them strategies, money for how effective they are. Increases show rate, increases close rate, condenses the timeline of the buying cycle, increases average order value if your guys are struggling to fucking cash collect the full amount you're actually charging, reduces payment plans, reduces financing needs for partners, turns your salespeople into cashiers, replicates the organic sales process. I mean, fuck, why wouldn't you do it? You know, probably because you don't know how. And if you don't know how, and you're not picking it up in detail from this video, join into my Inner Circle program. It's a bunch of rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. The link's in the description. Twice a month one-on-one calls where I can school you on exactly what you need to do. Weekly group calls where I can school you on what you need to do and tell you in detail with examples exactly step by step what you need to accomplish. You can DM me in real time. I will message you and I will talk to you. You send me voice notes, you can do looms, you can do whatever the hell you want. To be fair, it's generally not real time. I got a lot of shit going on, so I'll message you generally every few hours. Sometimes I go back and forth in real time, but you know, for the expectation, it's generally not like you message me and I message you instantly back. Imagine me pulling out my phone right now and messaging you back, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's delayed. Anyway, point I'm trying to make, we also do quarterly masterminds in person here at the Penthouse in Miami. It's amazing. It's fun. We do it 4 times a year. Rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. Link in the description. Also, I started making all these videos into blogs. So if you're watching this and you prefer to read it or check out a bunch of other blogs so you can consume a lot of this type of information faster, so link in the description on jeremyhaynes.com. I got a whole blog now for all these videos. Hope you enjoy that too. Okay, anyway, back to my point. When you combine the best practices, okay, of the funnels, and you combine that with advertising best practices, there's really only one category left that you need to master, which is the sales side of things, okay? Sales teams require a few things. And this one, surprisingly, is what I'm gonna start it with because, believe it or not, and I don't want to sound derogatory towards salespeople when I say this, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today without salespeople, or me as a salesperson, I wouldn't be as good as I am without my sales skills. Salespeople are some of the most important people on earth. And I don't want to make them sound stupid when I say this, but for some reason, this is just a recurring lesson that comes up again and again and again in every sales team we work with and manage and help. A repetition of the same lessons. Okay, I've told salespeople, okay, in order to get somebody to show up at a higher rate, you need to establish communication with them prior to a call. You need to message them from an iPhone, because again, rich people, they don't want to talk to you if you have a green text. As pretentious as that sounds, it's so true. You know it, I know it. Don't lie about it, okay? And if you're an Android user, get a fucking iPhone, all right? We all think you're poor. That's just how it is. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. Okay, anyway, if you text somebody prior to a call from an iPhone, that's the highest probability nowadays to know it's a real person and not a bot, okay? If it's from a green text, there's a high probability it's an automated text or a bot. People have come to become conditioned to just ignore all that. They don't pay attention to it, they just ignore it, okay? And if you're using automated text, they better just be reminder texts. Because again, people are very unresponsive to green text in general. I want to be clear when I say this. Selfie videos make a huge difference. I've told salespeople, pull out your phone, and just literally make a video. Hey, what's going on? Really excited to connect with you. My name's Jeremy. We got our call coming up at 3 p.m. tomorrow. It's my personal cell phone, by the way. If you have any questions between now and then, let me know. By the way, I was reading through your application and I saw that you answered it in this particular way. Dude, I have a killer video that I think would help you a lot in the instance that you wanted to learn more about that before our call. Can you let me know if you got I think it's like a 10-minute video. Can you let me know if you got 10 minutes to watch this thing? I'll shoot it over if you do. All right, looking forward to chatting with you. Talk soon either way. Bye. Send that fucking video off. Dude, I've had salespeople who do that and they hit me back and they're like, oh my God, my show rate's through the roof. Like people are much more enthused when they get on calls. My close rate's going up. Everybody's happier. And like 3 weeks later, I'll see their show rate drop and I hit them up. I'm like, what's going on with your show rate? Are you still sending selfie videos? And they'll say some shit to me. They'll say, oh no, I stopped doing it. You know, unreal. Salespeople require repetition of the same exact lessons. And you don't have to do it like day in and day out, but it's typically like, okay, let's say you have 2 weeks worth of training, okay? Maybe 3 weeks. And that's like your daily training schedule. You can just repeat it and go through that same cycle again and again and again and again. And that actually has more effectiveness than trying to add like new shit on top of the proven shit that you've already know works. Okay, generally when you get away from just repeating the core, this is what you need to do and this is what works best, and you start adding like random shit on top of it, and you never repeat the core shit again, they stop doing the core shit. And it's like they only focus on what they're being trained on the most, and along the way they maybe add like 5 to 10% without exaggeration of the things that you've talked about along the way to their core habits. So a repetition of what you actually want them to do is highly necessary, typically within the same month. Okay, and again, I don't say that in a derogatory way. That's just what I've seen work again and again and again. All right, 2, and this one's also very important. You have to be able to hire consistently as you go, okay? Hiring consistently matters a lot to the potential of a call funnel. Okay, let's use the example that it takes you 3 to 4 weeks on average. This is closer math, by the way. If it takes 3 to 4 weeks on average to find somebody, recruit them, hire them, train them, get them on like some shadow calls where they show up with some other closers you've got or yourself, and then officially get on the phone. So let's say that's 3 to 4 weeks. If you did the thing where you fill up your schedule and then you go hire, and it takes you 3 to 4 weeks on average, well, you got 12 months in the year, okay? So as an example, if you've in total got essentially 6 different instances where you're probable to scale if that's what you do, because you'd fill the calendar here so it's full, and then the next month you'd hire and have more people to be able to scale again, and then you're full again, and then you'd hire again, and then you're full again, and then you'd hire again. So technically you're scaling every other month in this example, which to some of you, I mean, honestly, you might prefer that, you know, and maybe that's why you do it at the end of the day. But your ability to make more money ends up looking like this. Again, if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If we have 12 different instances throughout the month, it's like you scaled and then you're flat, and then you scaled and then you're flat, and then you scaled and then you're flat, and then you scaled and then you're flat. But like this isn't typically how it works. Like you and I know how it works. There's some contractions in there as well. So my point being, in comparison, this only gives me 6 times throughout the month that I'm scaling, versus if I just consistently hired new salespeople and I consistently filled their calendars, how it ends up looking is like you're always gonna have more availability than what you have calls booked. And that's how it should go. Versus what most of you do is like you'll fill the calendars and then you'll get more closers, and then you'll fill the calendar and then you'll get more closers, and then you'll fill the calendar and then you'll get more closers. That shouldn't be how it is. It's like, okay, literally when you start, you might be in that position. So it's like you get more closers and then you start to fill the calendars, but like when you get halfway, you should already be getting more closers. That way there is no running into that ceiling, because when you run into the ceiling, immediately you're delayed a full 3 to 4 weeks, which puts you at an every other month scaling process, which puts you at typically 6 times a year you actually get to punch the gas and scale. I want you to be in the position where you're scaling 12 times a year. 12 different iterations of scale is literally double the revenue of the business that only scales every other month in comparison, okay? Run into the walls sooner. That's the thing about obstacles. It's like if in this every other month example, right? So this would be month 1, this would be month 2, this would be month 3, this would be month 4. In this example, okay, here's what's happening. There might be a giant obstacle right here just waiting for you at month 3, okay? And guess what? If you would have just condensed that timeline down, you would have actually ran in, instead of running into the obstacle over here, guess what? You would have run into it way over here in comparison. You see that? You condense the timeline, you deal with this sooner, and then you get to scale faster, okay? The people who go slower, they just deal with the same problems, but on a slower pace. They make less money over more time. People who go faster, they make more money over less time, and they run into the same problems faster. And remember, one of the core principles, one of the core, you must do this has to be in your mindset when you're trying to hit $1 million months, is when a problem comes up, you do anything in your power to overcome that fucking problem. You throw everything you've got at that problem. You don't let problems hold you back. You overcome them like a motherfucker. You don't let those things stop you, okay? Now anyway, I digress. My point being, when you have, say sales teams, okay? And you're hiring consistently, you're staying ahead of the game, you're doing a repetition of the same lessons. By the way, just to be very clear on this, there's consistent sales training, okay? This is a must. It's not an option. You have to do it all the time. Every single time I have a business owner that we work with that does consistent sales training and then something comes up and they stop, guess what happens? They make less money, okay? They always make less money as a result of stopping the training from some shit that comes up, like travel or yada yada, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Okay, consistent sales training. In addition to that, proper sales management, okay? You have to have proper management in order to make a lot of money, because again, those salespeople, they're gonna need consistent training. They're gonna need a repetition of the same lessons. They're gonna need somebody to help hire consistently. And all of that, literally every single thing underneath the proper sales management umbrella is these three things, okay? That's what a sales manager does, and that's what they're gonna consistently do. In addition to that, they're going to report analytics, okay? Analytics by sales teams are super critical. Show rate, close rate, rebooking rate, cancellation rates, right? Some of these things can be automated, but a lot of it's done by reporting it into a sheet to the owners, to the marketers, so people can make changes, make adjustments, give the feedback in an articulate way to the marketers so they can make changes. Okay, one thing that I also want to make clear is dispositions, okay? There should always be dispositions. A lot of salespeople give the most trash advice like ever when, oh, it's so frustrating. When it's like, hey, how's lead quality? And they'll just say, oh, it's good. Or they'll just say, oh, it's bad. It's like that 50-50 shit is so unhelpful. Like there's no benefit to that. In comparison, dispositions are, okay, if it's bad, what are the reasons that they're bad? Like, were they financially unqualified? Were they uncertain about the offer? Were they, like, did they have too many questions? You know, did they need to, like, common objections? Like, you need to talk to a spouse? Did they hit you with that kind of shit? You know, was there something that they blamed, like a macro event, you know? My point being is, like, when there's dispositions, that's feedback that a marketer can use. That's feedback that the business can use. That's feedback that can adjust the content sequences that are hammering people. You know, that's feedback that makes a difference, that increases the probability dramatically that you're actually gonna be able to make changes to overcome that negative feedback and turn it into positive feedback. When you just have a sales team that does that dumb shit where they're like, oh yeah, they're all bad, look, they're not good. It's like, dude, that does nothing. There's no benefit to that at all. Quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. It's just it's just useless. Okay, now to be clear, there is an unbound amount of lessons I could sit here and talk to you about all of these categories and then some. And I do, but not here on YouTube. I do it in my Inner Circle program. Once again, twice a month, one-on-one calls, weekly group calls, masterminds every quarter, January, April, July, and October. We stream them. They're live in person. Obviously, you're welcome to show up here in Miami, and we record them and we dish them out to people as well. We've got a group chat full of rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. I'm telling you now, you resonate with these videos in any way, shape, or form. You resonate with the vibe of talking about money, getting richer, wanting to, once again, turn money into more money via paid advertising and just in business in general. It's the perfect group for you, okay? It's full of a bunch of hitters who are also all on the same wavelength, and we all contribute. It's very active and it's fun. I find people in there for very long durations of time, and we all get along quite well, and we all have similar goals of getting a hell of a lot richer than we are now. Regardless of whether you join into that or not, subscribe to the channel, like the video, do me a favor, drop a comment with something that you got out of it. It helps juice the video to other people who need to see this gospel, okay? And regardless of whether you do any of that, thanks for being here. Appreciate you watching. And yeah, go get richer. Talk soon.